All right, settle down, you little rascals. Grandpa Joe chuckled, his eyes twinkling like distant stars. He gestured towards the worn, comfortable armchairs gathered around the crackling fireplace. Come on, gather round. I promised you stories, and Grandpa Joe always keeps his promises. His grandchildren, a mix of ages ranging from 8 to 15, eagerly obeyed. They knew Grandpa Joe's stories were the best, filled with adventures and laughter, and sometimes, a little bit of mystery. Now, he began, leaning back in his chair and steepling his fingers, you all live in a world filled with, well, everything. You have your phones, your computers, your fancy cars. But let me tell you, things were a whole lot different when I was your age. We're talking about the 1950s, kids. Eisenhower was president, Elvis was king, and life was simpler. Slower. But not necessarily easier, mind you. He paused, letting his words sink in. Imagine a world without the internet. No instant messaging, no video games, no endless scrolling. If you wanted to talk to someone, you either walked over to their house or used a telephone, a real telephone with a dial. Can you even picture that? He laughed, a warm, rumbling sound. Cars were different, too. Big, gas-guzzling machines with fins that could practically fly. We didn't have seatbelts, and the radio only played AM stations. But boy, did we think we were cool cruising down Main Street. He winked. And life was different in other ways, too. Families were close-knit. We ate dinner together every night, and Sundays were reserved for church and visiting relatives. We played outside until the streetlights came on, inventing our own games and getting into all sorts of mischief. He smiled, a nostalgic expression on his face. It was a time of innocence, in many ways. A time before the world got so complicated. But it was also a time of great change, a time when the seeds of the future were being sown. And it was my time. So, get comfortable, and let me tell you about what it was like to grow up in the fabulous 50s. He reached for a glass of water on the small table beside him, ready to launch into the next chapter of his life. Now, where to begin? Grandpa Joe mused, tapping his chin thoughtfully. Ah, yes. My early childhood. I grew up in a small town called Harmony Creek. It was nestled in a valley, surrounded by rolling hills and fields of corn as far as the eye could see. Everyone knew everyone, and life moved at a slower pace. You could leave your doors unlocked, and nobody would think twice about it. Our school was a one-room schoolhouse. Can you imagine that? All the grades, from 1st to 8th, all in one room. Mrs. Gable was our teacher, and she was a saint. She taught us everything, reading, writing, arithmetic, even a little bit of history and geography. We learned by rote, reciting poems and multiplication tables until they were etched in our brains. It wasn't fancy, but it was effective. He chuckled. Recess was the best part of the day, of course. We didn't have fancy playgrounds like you do. We had a dirt field and our imaginations. We played tag, kickball, hopscotch, all the classics. And in the winter, when the snow piled high, we'd go sledding down the biggest hill we could find. It was simple fun, but it was the best kind. We didn't have much in the way of toys, either. But we made do with what we had. We built forts in the woods, played with marbles, and collected bottle caps. My best friend, Billy, and I would spend hours building elaborate racetracks for our marbles, complete with tunnels and jumps. It was amazing what you could do with a little bit of imagination and a pile of dirt. Evenings were spent with family. After dinner, we'd gather around the radio and listen to our favorite shows. The Lone Ranger, The Shadow, Gunsmoke, those were the days. And sometimes, if we were lucky, my dad would play his harmonica. He wasn't a professional musician or anything, but he could play a mean tune. Those were some of my fondest memories. Our town wasn't perfect, mind you. We had our share of hardships. The work was hard, and money was tight. But we had something that you can't buy with money, a sense of community. Everyone looked out for each other. If someone was sick, the neighbors would bring food and help with chores. If someone was down on their luck, the whole town would rally around them. That's what I remember most about my early childhood, the sense of community, the simple pleasures, and the feeling of being safe and loved. It was a different world, a simpler world, but it was a good world. A world that shaped me into the person I am today. He smiled, a warm, contented smile. Now, who's ready for the next story? Now, if there was one place in Harmony Creek that was truly magical, it was Miller's Soda Shop, Grandpa Joe declared, a mischievous glint returning to his eyes. Oh, that place was the bee's knees. It was the place to be, especially on a Friday night. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Mr. Miller, he made the best milkshakes in the entire county. Real ice cream, real milk, and all sorts of delicious flavors. My favorite was chocolate, of course, but sometimes I'd splurge and get a strawberry or a vanilla. And they weren't those watery, flavorless shakes you get nowadays. These were thick, creamy, and piled high with whipped cream and a cherry on top. The soda shop wasn't just about the milkshakes, though, he continued. It was about the atmosphere. The booths were all red vinyl, and the walls were covered in posters of Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe. And then there was the jukebox. He sighed wistfully. Oh, the jukebox. It had all the latest hits. Elvis, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, all the greats. For a nickel, you could pick your favorite song and listen to it while you sipped your milkshake and chatted with your friends. That's where we all hung out after school, after football games, on weekends. We'd talk about everything and nothing. School, girls, cars, the latest movies. It was a place where you could be yourself, where you could laugh and joke and just be a kid. He paused, a faraway look in his eyes. I remember one time, I was trying to impress Mary, you know, your grandma, and I tried to do the twist like Elvis. Let's just say it didn't go so well. I tripped and spilled my milkshake all over myself. She laughed so hard she almost cried. But hey, it worked. She went out with me after that. He chuckled. Mr. Miller, he was a good man. He ran that soda shop for over 50 years. He knew everyone in town, and he always had a kind word and a smile for everyone who walked through the door. He was like a father figure to a lot of us kids. He taught us about hard work, honesty, and the importance of community. The soda shop was more than just a place to get a milkshake. It was a gathering place, a community hub, a place where memories were made. It's gone now, of course. Torn down to make way for a parking lot. But I'll never forget it. It was a special place, a place that holds a special place in my heart. He smiled softly. So, who wants to hear about the time I almost burned down the school during a science experiment? But life in the 50s wasn't all milkshakes and rock and roll, Grandpa Joe said, his voice becoming more serious. The fire in the hearth seemed to crackle a little louder, casting long shadows across the room. There was something else hanging over our heads, something that scared us all, the Cold War. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. You kids have probably read about it in your history books, but it's hard to understand what it was really like to live with that constant fear. The Soviet Union, atomic bombs, the threat of nuclear war, it was always there, lurking in the background. We had duck-and-cover drills at school, he continued, his voice taking on a somber tone. The teacher would yell, drop, and we'd all dive under our desks, covering our heads with our arms. We thought it would protect us from an atomic bomb. Looking back, it seems kind of silly, but at the time, we were terrified. We really believed that the world could end at any moment. He shook his head slowly. We built bomb shelters in our backyards. Stocked them with canned food, water, and blankets. My dad even bought a Geiger counter, so we could measure the radiation levels if a bomb went off. It was a scary time, a very scary time. The news was filled with stories about the arms race, about Soviet spies, about the threat of communism. We were constantly bombarded with propaganda, telling us to be vigilant, to be suspicious of anyone who seemed different. I remember one time, a new family moved into our town. They were from Russia, and they spoke with a funny accent. Some people were suspicious of them, whispering behind their backs. But my parents, they welcomed them with open arms. They invited them over for dinner, helped them get settled in. They taught me that it's important to judge people by their character, not by where they come from. The Cold War taught us a lot of things. It taught us about fear, about propaganda, about the dangers of hatred and prejudice. But it also taught us about resilience, about the importance of standing up for what's right, and about the power of hope. Even in the face of unimaginable destruction, we never gave up hope that things would get better. He looked at his grandchildren, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and determination. So, remember this, kids. Never take peace for granted. Always stand up for what you believe in. And never let fear control your life. He paused, taking a deep breath. Now, let's talk about something a little more cheerful. Who wants to hear about my first car? All right, Grandpa Joe said, clapping his hands together, the somber mood lifting like a morning mist. Enough of the doom and gloom. Let's talk about something that brought a whole lot of sunshine into my life, my first car. His eyes lit up, and a broad grin spread across his face. It was a 1949 Ford, a real beauty, or at least I thought so. It was a hand-me-down from my older brother, and it had seen better days. The paint was faded, the seats were ripped, and the engine coughed and sputtered like an old man with a bad cold. But to me, it was the most magnificent machine in the world. I saved up every penny I could get my hands on to buy that car. I mowed lawns, delivered newspapers, and even helped old Mrs. Henderson with her grocery shopping. It took me almost a year, but finally, I had enough money to buy it from my brother. He chuckled. The day I drove that car home was one of the happiest days of my life. I felt like I could go anywhere, do anything. It was freedom on four wheels. Of course, the car had its quirks. The brakes were a little temperamental. And the steering wheel had a mind of its own. But I didn't care. It was mine. My friends and I, we'd pile into that car and go cruising around town. We'd go to the drive-in movies, to the lake, to, well, anywhere we could think of. We'd sing along to the radio, eat burgers and fries, and just enjoy being young and free. One summer, we decided to take a road trip to the beach. It was a long drive, and the car broke down about halfway there. We spent the whole day trying to fix it, but we couldn't get it running. We were stranded. But we didn't let it ruin our trip. We hitched a ride with a friendly truck driver, and we made it to the beach just in time to see the sunset. It was the best beach trip ever, even though we never made it in my car. That car taught me a lot about responsibility. I had to learn how to maintain it, how to fix it when it broke down, and how to drive safely. It also taught me about friendship, about adventure, and about the importance of making the most of every moment. I don't have that car anymore. I sold it years ago when I needed the money. But I'll never forget it. It was more than just a car. It was a symbol of freedom, of youth, of endless possibilities. He smiled, a faraway look in his eyes. Now, who wants to hear about the time I got a speeding ticket in that car? Speaking of that car, Grandpa Joe chuckled, it wasn't just for joyriding, you know. It also helped me learn a thing or two about hard work. You see, back in my day, teenagers were expected to contribute to the family. We didn't just sit around playing video games all day. He winked. My first real job was delivering newspapers. I had to get up at the crack of dawn, 7 days a week, and ride my bicycle all over town, throwing newspapers onto people's porches. Rain or shine, snow or sleet, I had to get those papers delivered. He grimaced slightly. It wasn't always easy. Some days, the weather was terrible, and my fingers would be numb with cold. Other days, the papers would be heavy, and my legs would ache from pedaling uphill. And then there were the dogs. He shuddered dramatically. Let's just say I had a few close calls with some particularly territorial canines. But it was good work. It taught me the value of $1. I learned how to manage my time, how to be responsible, and how to deal with difficult situations. And it gave me a sense of accomplishment. I knew that I was contributing to something important, that I was helping to support my family. After the newspaper route, I got a job working at the local grocery store. I stocked shelves, bagged groceries, and helped customers find what they were looking for. It was hard work, but it was also a lot of fun. I met all sorts of interesting people, and I learned a lot about the grocery business. I saved every penny I earned. My goal was to go to college. My parents couldn't afford to pay for my education, so I knew I had to do it myself. It wasn't easy. I had to work long hours, and I had to sacrifice a lot of things. But I was determined to make it happen. Looking back, I'm grateful for those early experiences. They taught me the importance of hard work, perseverance, and financial responsibility. They also taught me the value of education. I knew that if I wanted to have a better life, I needed to get a good education. Nowadays, I see a lot of young people who expect everything to be handed to them on a silver platter. They don't understand the value of hard work. They don't appreciate what they have. But I hope that my stories will inspire you to be different. I hope that you'll learn to appreciate the value of hard work, to be responsible, and to never give up on your dreams. He smiled warmly. So, who wants to hear about the time I accidentally set off the fire alarm at the grocery store? Now, all that hard work wasn't just about saving for college, Grandpa Joe said, a soft smile gracing his lips. It also led me to something even more important, love. He paused, and his grandchildren exchanged knowing glances. They knew this was coming. I met your grandma, Mary, at a school dance. It was a sock hop, you know, where we took off our shoes and danced in our socks. Corny, I know, but it was fun. He chuckled. I saw her across the room, and I was immediately smitten. She was the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. She had long, brown hair, sparkling blue eyes, and the sweetest smile. He sighed dreamily. But I was shy. Really shy. I didn't know how to talk to girls. So, I spent the whole night just watching her from afar, too afraid to approach her. Finally, my best friend, Billy, gave me a shove and said, "Go talk to her, you idiot. You'll regret it if you don't." So, I took a deep breath and walked over to her. I stumbled over my words, I probably blushed like a tomato, but I managed to ask her to dance. He laughed. She said yes. And we danced the whole night. Or at least, we danced a few songs. Mostly, we just stood there awkwardly, trying to make conversation. But it was magical. Our first date was even more awkward. I took her to the movies. We saw some Western, I can't even remember what it was about. I was so nervous, I spilled popcorn all over her lap. She didn't seem to mind, though. She just laughed and brushed it off. We started spending more and more time together. We went to the soda shop, we went to the drive-in movies, we went for walks in the park. We talked about everything and nothing. I learned about her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. And she learned about mine. It wasn't always easy. We had our share of arguments, our share of misunderstandings. But we always worked through them. We learned how to communicate, how to compromise, and how to love each other unconditionally. I knew that she was the one. I knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. So, I asked her to marry me. It was the scariest thing I had ever done. But she said yes. He smiled, his eyes twinkling with love. We got married in a small church in Harmony Creek. All our friends and family were there. It was the happiest day of my life. And the rest, as they say, is history. We've been married for over 50 years now. We've raised a family, we've built a life together, and we've loved each other through thick and thin. He paused, looking at his grandchildren with a loving gaze. So, remember this, kids. Love is the most important thing in the world. It's what makes life worth living. Cherish it, protect it, and never let it go. He winked. Now, who wants to hear about our honeymoon? But even as Mary and I were falling in love and building our life together, Grandpa Joe said, his voice taking on a more thoughtful tone, the world around us was changing. The 50s weren't just about sock hops and milkshakes, they were also a time of great social upheaval. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum. Black Americans were fighting for their basic rights, for equality and justice. And it was a struggle. He sighed. Harmony Creek wasn't immune to the prejudices of the time. There weren't many black families in our town, but the ones who were there faced discrimination and injustice. They weren't allowed to use the same restrooms as white people. They weren't allowed to sit at the lunch counter at Miller's soda shop. They weren't allowed to swim in the public pool. At first, I didn't really understand what was going on. I was young and naive. But Mary, she opened my eyes. She taught me about the importance of equality, about the need to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. He smiled, a look of pride in his eyes. Mary, she got involved in the civil rights movement. She went to marches, she wrote letters to politicians, she spoke out against injustice. And I supported her every step of the way. It wasn't easy. We faced criticism and opposition. Some people in our town didn't understand what we were doing. They accused us of being troublemakers, of stirring up unrest. But we didn't let them deter us. We knew that what we were doing was right. We knew that everyone deserved to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of the color of their skin. The civil rights movement changed me. It made me a better person. It taught me about empathy, about compassion, and about the importance of fighting for justice. I'm proud of the role that Mary and I played in the civil rights movement. We may not have changed the world overnight, but we made a difference. We helped to create a more just and equal society. He looked at his grandchildren, his eyes filled with hope. So, remember this, kids. Never be silent in the face of injustice. Always stand up for what's right. And always fight for a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. He paused, taking a deep breath. Now, who wants to hear about the time I almost got arrested at a civil rights protest? Grandpa Joe's expression turned somber. Life isn't always easy, you know. Even in the good old days, there were times of hardship and loss. He paused, his gaze drifting towards a framed photograph on the mantelpiece, a picture of a younger Mary, her smile radiant but tinged with a hint of melancholy. When I was about 17, my younger sister, Susie, got really sick. It was something they called polio back then. It was a scary disease that could paralyze you, or even kill you. He swallowed hard, his voice thick with emotion. Susie was the light of our lives. She was always so cheerful, so full of energy. To see her lying in bed, weak and helpless, it broke our hearts. My parents, they did everything they could to help her. They took her to the best doctors, they gave her all the love and support she needed. But it wasn't enough. She passed away a few months later. He wiped a tear from his eye. It was the hardest thing I had ever gone through. I couldn't understand why something like that had to happen. It didn't seem fair. Our whole family was devastated. We mourned Susie deeply. It took us a long time to heal. But we got through it together. We leaned on each other for support. We shared our memories of Susie. And we never forgot her. That experience taught me a lot about loss, about grief, and about the importance of family. It taught me that life is precious and that we should cherish every moment we have with our loved ones. He sighed. It also taught me that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. That even when we lose someone we love, their memory lives on in our hearts. After Susie passed away, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I wanted to make her proud. I wanted to live a life that was worthy of her memory. That's why I worked so hard, why I went to college, why I tried to make a difference in the world. I wanted to honor her life by living my life to the fullest. He looked at his grandchildren, his eyes filled with love and compassion. So, remember this, kids. Life is full of ups and downs. There will be times when you experience joy and happiness, and there will be times when you experience sorrow and pain. But never give up hope. Always cherish your loved ones. And always remember that even in the darkest of times, there is always light. He paused, taking a deep breath. Now, who wants to hear about how I almost failed my math class? Well, enough of the sad stories, Grandpa Joe declared, clapping his hands together with forced cheerfulness. Let's talk about something a little more upbeat. Let's talk about graduation. He beamed, his eyes twinkling once again. Graduating high school was a big deal back in my day. It was the culmination of 12 years of hard work, and it marked the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. I remember the graduation ceremony like it was yesterday. It was a warm, sunny day. The whole town turned out to see us graduate. We wore our caps and gowns, and we walked across the stage to receive our diplomas. It was a proud moment, not just for us, but for our families too. After the ceremony, there was a big party at the town hall. Everyone was there, our friends, our families, our teachers, our neighbors. There was food, there was music, and there was a lot of dancing. It was a night to celebrate our accomplishments and to look forward to the future. I had big dreams for the future. I wanted to go to college, to get a good education, and to make something of myself. I wanted to make a difference in the world. But I also knew that it wasn't going to be easy. College was expensive, and I didn't have a lot of money. I knew I was going to have to work hard to achieve my goals. But I was determined. I had a vision for my future, and I was willing to do whatever it took to make that vision a reality. That summer after graduation, I worked harder than ever before. I worked at the grocery store, I mowed lawns, I did odd jobs around town. I saved every penny I could get my hands on. And finally, in the fall, I packed my bags and headed off to college. It was a big adventure, a new chapter in my life. I was excited, nervous, and a little bit scared. But I was ready. College was a challenging experience. The classes were tough, the workload was heavy, and I had to learn to live on my own. But it was also a rewarding experience. I met new people, I learned new things, and I grew as a person. I studied hard, I made friends, and I got involved in campus activities. I joined the debate team, I wrote for the school newspaper, and I even ran for student government. College opened my eyes to a whole new world of possibilities. It gave me the skills and knowledge I needed to succeed in life. And it helped me to become the person I am today. He looked at his grandchildren, his eyes filled with encouragement. So, remember this, kids. Education is the key to success. Never stop learning. Never stop growing. And always pursue your dreams, no matter how big or how challenging they may seem. He winked. Now, who wants to hear about the time I almost got kicked out of college for pulling a prank? You know, Grandpa Joe said softly, leaning back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames in the fireplace. As I look back on my life, I realize that it's the simple things that matter the most. It's not about the fancy cars or the big houses or the piles of money. It's about the people you share your life with, the memories you create, and the values you hold dear. He turned his attention to his grandchildren, his eyes filled with warmth and affection. Family is everything. They're the ones who will be there for you, no matter what. They're the ones who will love you unconditionally. They're the ones who will celebrate your successes and support you through your failures. In Harmony Creek, we had a strong sense of community. Everyone looked out for each other. We helped our neighbors in need, we supported local businesses, and we celebrated our shared history and traditions. Those values shaped me into the person I am today. They taught me the importance of kindness, compassion, and generosity. They taught me to be grateful for what I have and to always give back to others. The 50s were a different time. Life was simpler, but it wasn't always easy. We faced challenges and hardships, but we also experienced joy and laughter. We learned valuable lessons, and we grew as individuals and as a community. I'm grateful for the experiences I had growing up in the 50s. They taught me the importance of hard work, responsibility, and perseverance. They taught me the value of education, the power of love, and the importance of standing up for what's right. And most of all, they taught me the importance of family and community. They taught me that we're all in this together, and that we need to support each other and care for each other. He paused, his voice filled with emotion. I hope that my stories have given you a glimpse into what life was like back then. I hope that you've learned something from my experiences. And I hope that you'll carry those lessons with you throughout your lives. He smiled, a warm, contented smile. So, remember this, kids. Family is everything. Cherish your loved ones. Support your community. And always remember the values that make us who we are. He winked. Now, who wants some hot chocolate? Well, before I get up and make that hot chocolate, Grandpa Joe said, a twinkle in his eye, there's one more thing I want to say. And it's about being grateful. He paused, looking at each of his grandchildren in turn. You know, life isn't always perfect. There are always going to be challenges and difficulties. There are going to be times when you feel sad, or scared, or angry. But it's important to remember that there's always something to be grateful for. I'm grateful for my family. For your grandma, who has been my rock for over 50 years. For my children, who have brought so much joy into my life. And for all of you, my wonderful grandchildren, who fill my heart with love and pride. I'm grateful for the experiences I've had, both good and bad. They've all taught me something. They've made me stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. I'm grateful for the simple things in life. For the warmth of the sun on my face, for the beauty of nature, for the taste of a good meal, for the sound of laughter. Growing up in the 50s, we didn't have all the things you kids have today. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have fancy video games. But we had something even more important, we had each other. We had a strong sense of community. We supported each other, we cared for each other, and we celebrated each other's successes. I'm grateful for the values that were instilled in me growing up. The values of hard work, responsibility, honesty, and kindness. Those values have guided me throughout my life. They've helped me to make good decisions, to build strong relationships, and to live a life that is meaningful and fulfilling. So, remember this, kids. Always be grateful for what you have. Appreciate the simple things in life. Cherish your loved ones. And never forget the values that make you who you are. He smiled, a warm, contented smile. I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for the people in my life. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my stories with you. He stood up, stretching his arms. Now, who's ready for that hot chocolate? And maybe a few marshmallows? The grandchildren cheered, their faces alight with joy and gratitude. Grandpa Joe's stories had transported them to another time, but the lessons he shared would stay with them forever. He knew, deep in his heart, that he had passed on something truly special. He had given them a piece of his past, a glimpse into his soul, and a legacy of love and gratitude. And that, he thought, was the greatest gift of all. Before we all run off for hot chocolate and marshmallows, Grandpa Joe said, his voice a gentle rumble, I just want you to remember one last thing. Your time, right now, is special too. He settled back into his chair, his eyes twinkling with warmth. Just like I look back on the 50s with fondness, one day you'll look back on these years, on your childhood, on the things you're doing right now. And you'll remember them with a special kind of feeling. He paused, letting his words sink in. Don't take this time for granted. Don't spend all your time glued to your screens, missing out on the world around you. Get outside, play with your friends, explore your interests. Learn new things, make mistakes, and grow as people. Cherish your family. Spend time with your parents, your siblings, your grandparents. Tell them you love them. Because you never know how much time you have left with them. Be kind to others. Treat everyone with respect, even if they're different from you. Stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Make the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. And most importantly, be true to yourselves. Follow your hearts, pursue your passions, and never let anyone tell you that you can't achieve your dreams. He smiled, a warm, encouraging smile. Your lives are just beginning. You have so much to look forward to. So much to experience. So much to contribute to the world. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to fail. Because it's through our failures that we learn and grow. Embrace the challenges that come your way. They'll make you stronger, more resilient, and more compassionate. And never forget the values that make you who you are. The values of honesty, integrity, kindness, and compassion. He looked at his grandchildren, his eyes shining with love and pride. I'm so proud of all of you. You're all smart, talented, and kind. I know you're going to do great things in this world. So, go out there and make the most of your lives. Live them to the fullest. And never forget the lessons you've learned here tonight. He stood up, his joints creaking slightly. Now, let's go get that hot chocolate. It's getting late, and I'm sure you all have school tomorrow. The grandchildren jumped up, their faces glowing with excitement. They hugged Grandpa Joe tightly, thanking him for his stories and for his wisdom. As they headed towards the kitchen, their laughter filled the air. Grandpa Joe watched them go, a contented smile on his face. He knew that he had given them something special, something that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. He had given them a piece of his heart, a glimpse into his past, and a legacy of love, gratitude, and hope. And that, he thought, was a life well lived. He turned and followed them into the kitchen, ready to share hot chocolate, marshmallows, and even more love.